Let's begin with the informal meditation. Sorry that there was a problem at our end, something that we have lost first 5 minutes. Let's do 3 cycles of deep breathing. Breathe out. Hold the breath out. Breathe in. Hold it within. Breathe out. Hold it out. Breathe in. Hold it within. One more last cycle. Breathe out. Hold it out. Breathe in. Hold it within. Let us recite that brief mantra. Om Sachidanand. Om Sachidanand. Om Sachidanand. Om Sachidanand. So we can now gradually open our eyes. Welcome to the 9th session of our current course on Patanjali meditation. In our discussion of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, last time we covered the concept of klesh, which were of 5 types. The principal one was avidya. I translated it as ignorance. Klesh also I translated as ignorance as well as cause of suffering. But the way we have seen avidya, to treat an non-eternal thing as eternal, impure thing as pure, painful thing as pleasant, and unconscious thing as conscious. This was his statement. Anitya Shuchi Dukha Anatmasu Nitya Shuchi Sukhatma Khyati Avidya. So avidya, though we have translated as ignorance, is not quite ignorance. It is wrong knowledge. It is ignorance is not aware of a true knowledge. Somebody is ignorant, but here he is so specific that to consider something A as something B, which is it is not definitely so. So that will be wrong knowledge. So his avidya is slightly more a strong term. It is not just merely being a childlike ignorant. It is very forceful. He's saying to teach something as something else which it is not. So I thought I should make this clarification. And otherwise we have seen other four, and this was principle, the avidya, because this is what gives rise to the other four. Today we are going to look at next 4 or 5 here, from 10th to 15th statement. So about 6 of them. So which is in the, he has defined Kriya Yoga, which will diminish klesh, and then he has described what is the nature of klesh, and now he is going to devote next 3 statements, 10, 11, and 12, on, let's look at one by one. So 10 and 11 go hand in hand slightly. 10th statement is Te Pratipasau Heya Sukshma. They is they, the kleshas which have been described. Pratipasau Heya means they are worth discard, and they are discarded in a peculiar manner. What he's saying is Pratipasau means as if a seed becomes a germinates and a tiny plant and so on and so forth. So now we are not throwing away that plant, it goes back to where it came from. So that is what he's calling as Pratipasau, means it returns back gradually to its root where it came from. Of course, through the Kriya Yoga. So Kriya, he's saying the way they get finer and finer, sukshma is refined, so they are becoming mild and mild and mild, and that is the way they finally vanish, and they are worth, they should be vanished. That's what should be the outcome for a person who is wise person interested in yoga and kriya yoga, etc. So te prati prasav heya sukshma. So they, the kleshas, are worth discard. They can be made to return gradually to their roots through kriya yoga. Now he is having given an overview picture, he becomes more specific how to do it. That was a mechanism. Now statement 11 is dhyan heyas tadvittaya. So he's saying meditation is going to be helpful. Their modifications on mind screen with these mind screen modifications on mind due to these kleshas, and they are those with those modifications are also ought to be discarded, and they are discarded through meditation. So what he's saying is, in the 10th statement, he generally described that this is how they vanish back to their roots where they came from. And how does it happen? It happens through meditation practice. That is what makes one succeed into it. If it is not happening, now the statement 12 is in that direction. Klesh mula karmashayo dist adist janma vedaniya. So klesh, this is what we are discussing. They are the root cause of next thing what is called karmashaya. So klesh gives rise to certain karma. That's why we called it as cause of suffering. Because of that klesh, I make certain effort. And when I make an effort, that is my karma, and that leaves an impression in my mind. That impression of karma is called karmashaya, also called sanskar that way. And that gives rise to pain and suffering, and which will be in the current life. Drisht means in the present life, or adrisht means in the future life. So kleshas are the root of the karma and their impressions, which must be experienced in the present and future lives. So there is a he's attributing to something called law of karma. So klesh gives rise to karma, and that gives rise to the rewards of the karma I have performed. So now that will be the specific thing in the next statement, 13th. 13th is sati mule tad vipako jati ayu bhoga. So if there is a karmasha, the karma has been performed and it has left some impressions within me, then after certain gestation period, that is called tad vipak. Vipak means it gets ripened. So that now the karmasha is the root, and what gets ripened is its rewards. And rewards are in, he is giving in a three echelons of it. So let's read the translation. Root is now the klesh, which is being present. Well, I will modify it to karmasha. Of course, original root was klesh. Klesh gave rise to the karma and then impressions, karmasha. Now that karmasha is the root, that being there, sati mule means that being there, tad vipak, that will get ripened after gestation period and would lead to the fruits of the karma in the form of jati is the nature of species, like a human species, a cow and horse and dog. These are all called jati. Jati is not what is commonly known in India as a caste. Here, jati means prasavatmika jati, that is the statement of Gautam's in Nyaya, means when male and female members unite together biologically, physically, then they give rise to the birth of a child, then that male and female are said to be in the same jati. So all human beings, whether in Africa, India, if a male and female unite, they give birth to the child. So entire humanity is one jati. So that's what happens with cow, horse. That's how the generations after generations show up in the world. So jati is the nature of species. And within a jati, somebody lives short life, somebody lives long. That is called ayu. And then bhog is the nature of living. You know, a dog in a family, American family, is enjoying more than a street dog in India. So maybe the jati is same, but the certain breeds of dog may live 10 years, certain breeds may live 15, 18, 20 years, and within that same breed, some dog may be in India going after the street food and so on and so forth. And that similar dog in America is a pet animal in a family and is having more enjoying life better. So jati, ayu and bhog, that is what is coming out due to the karma I have performed. So that may happen in the current life as well as in the future life. So he's saying basically clash gives rise to karma and karma gives rise to the rewards which show up in these different forms. Now 14th he's saying te hilat paita phala punya apunya hetutva. Now te is for the rewards of the karma. This is pronoun. Now he's going step by step. Now karma has been covered and karma gives rise to the reward. So this pronoun te is for the rewards of the karma. They therefore said threefold fruits. They could be hilad, paitap, phala. They could be rewards in terms of pleasure or pain. So they are pleasant or painful. And then he is saying it is not arbitrary. There is a definite law of karma. So when you derive pleasure, it is due to some positive karma you have done. So he is saying punya karma. I am translating as virtuous karma. And he is slightly unusual. He is not saying pap here, vicious or sinful karma. He is just saying non-virtuous. So that is as there also in the first chapter. We didn't go that far in the first chapter, but this is very interesting. He is not saying punya and pap, he is saying punya and apunya. So the translation is they, the aforesaid threefold fruits are not arbitrary, they are pleasant or painful. Pleasant because of some good positive karma you did, virtuous, and painful because you did something negative type of bad karma, non-virtuous actions. One more I take up today, then we have a longish topic which I am postponing for next week, and that will have 10 or 11 statements. They come together in one bunch. So we are ending today at the 15th. Let me read it first. Now he's saying basically that so called pleasant fruits are also not quite pleasant for a wise person. So let me read the statement first. Parinam tap sanskar. Dukha gun vitti vyodhacha dukham mev sarve vivekina. So what he's saying is for a common man, the life in the world is mix of pleasure and pain. What is coming out of body and mind and interaction with an object of a material object. So these are sensual experiences that give rise to sukha and dukh and pleasure and pain. What he called in the 14th statement as hlad and payita. So now he's saying actually what is so called pleasant for somebody, a common man, is also not necessarily pleasant. If somebody analyzes the situation better, then he is using three factors: parinam, tap, sanskar. What he's saying, that particular object which somebody assigned as object of pleasure is not quite universally pleasant, because many others don't quite treat it as objects of pleasure, though a particular human being may consider. Like, say, a cup of coffee, somebody may find as a source of pleasure, but there are many people who don't find it a source of pleasure. And then he's saying, if suppose you consumed it to a larger, just for sake of hypothetical discussion, if it was a source of pleasure, then it should always be source of pleasure. But you had a one cup, two cup, three cups, at one point you will say, now it is no more pleasant for me. So then you will yourself say, it is no more a source of pleasure and I don't want any more of it. And then he's saying there is another, this is parinam, consequence. Sometimes that same coffee which you have had may give rise to all kinds of difficulties, all kinds of health negative effects. So that is not quite necessarily to be attributed as source of pleasure. So parinam. Tap means in order, now that you think it is a source of pleasure, you you make an effort to acquire it, and that effort itself is a painful exercise. To acquire that source, you have to make an effort, and that is also a causes pain to you. And then sanskar, now that you have had the coffee, you even you walked a long distance and got somehow a cup of coffee, but you have now got so much used to it. At the end of your work, you always walk to that coffee place and have a coffee. Now that has become a sanskar in your mind, that sanskar, even now that you don't have a coffee here, that sanskar, something impatient in your mind is bothering you. And how can I get a coffee at this point? And it becomes a cause of pain to you. So he is describing slightly in detail that a so-called object of pleasure, if you analyze the situation carefully, is not quite is not quite a source of pleasure, and a wise man should understand it. And then he's saying dukha gun vritti vyodhacha. There is an element of subjectivity here, because all this so-called pleasure is basically something is happening at your chitta, which is being dominated by certain guna. We haven't yet gone into guna, which we will have to do about two statements later next week. But guna is, a matter in its very primary form is in a equilibrium of three possible guna. And yes, at one point I did describe it when I gave an example of a schoolgirl, the way she ties her hair, the three strands, and when they come together. So I think in some context, somewhere in the first chapter, I tried to say, or maybe when I was showing you Kapil's that 25 elements diagram, I probably described at that point, though Patanjali has brought in good at this point, I think. So what he's saying is, with these modifications in our chitta, so that is happening due to interplay of three gunas. So just for the time being, we'll say there are three of them: sattva, rajas, and tamas. And sattva is say gives rise to pleasure, and that's why I said probably that a child's default state is pleasant. Yes, in this context, when I was saying ananda anugamat samadhi, the intuitive cognition, then I think I was trying to say that a child chitta is by default is rich in sattva, so child is naturally smiling most of the time, doesn't have to have a reason to smile. So our chitta is basically rich in sattva, and that's what. But as we grow up, it does get disturbed, all its formulations. So now Patanjali is saying that whatever sensual experience reaches as far as my chitta is basically interplay of these gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas, and just because for a moment sattva for a particular human being, for his chitta, some object gives rise to richness and happiness, he feels good. But this is so subjective that same object in somebody else's chitta has goes through a different kind of interplay. So a wise person ought to know that all this is very transient. So this is basically a dukh only because it is just a resultant of dynamics of these three gunas in your chitta. And they play vyodhacha, and because there is a non-universality. So because of all these factors, dukkha meo, this is all the sources, objects of pleasure or pain, what a common man thinks, but a wise person treats all of them as objects of pain. So wise people, translation second 15 is wise people treat all of them painful because of threefold resultants, parinam, tap and sanskar. Having enjoyed that object of pleasure, its consequence may be painful, its efforts to acquire it may be painful, and it may disturb my mind slightly later because of the sanskar that may be. And then he says, Dukha Gunvetti Vyodhacha, element of subjectivity because of Gunvetti and all that. So this is just a manifestation. This is called all parinami because the matter is basically manifest and it shows up all kinds of dynamical situations which is transient. So that is what was 15. I might just comment here. Kriya Yoga is for, we started chapter 1 for very superior mind. Then came another level which some human beings are. I will say superior mind. Probably there will not be 7 people out of 7 billion people. Now coming to the second level of people who have inherent clash in their chitta, that for them he is describing Kriya Yoga. And I will say, like those who are, I'm not saying that I am also like that. What I'm saying, most of us people here gathered are probably in this category because they have at least seen the benefit and they are interested in Patanjali's teaching. So we are slightly different from the millions of people outside on the street. So here we have clash within ourselves. Our mind has that inbuilt inherent ignorance. And then he is trying to tell us that among you, if you have become a wise person, you will not go after because clash leads to karma and karma leads to all its reward. So that will lead to again the birth in the next cycle. So you will always be in the cycle of birth and death. So that is not really the high level objective of the human life. A human life should go elevate itself to much higher level. So he is trying to explain it to us, people like us, that don't uh, do practice Kriya Yoga so that you diminish your clash and then you become Samadhi Bhavanatha so that Samadhi is interesting for you, so on and so forth. And now what he will do is from next week we will see that if we have not understood this much, he will now logically try to convince us that you have no other way but to do this. So as of now, he has tried to explain as like a mother or father or teacher will do that look, this is the right approach. You should do Kriya Yoga. Otherwise, you will be in the common man's cycle of birth and death. So he has just explained it. But now the next 10 statements are a particular, very specific approach in Vedic philosophy. It is called Chaturvihu Rachana, fourfold strategy. And because that goes for 11 statements, I will just go in one go. and I think that's much is enough for today. So we started late slightly, 5 minutes, because of my laptop had a slight problem and suddenly it lost the internet link. But I hope our friends who are in webinar mode had patience for 5 minutes and then they are with us. So I have uh, slightly more to discuss with sleep, a very important topic. I want to make some remarks on stress because stress is a very burning problem in modern fast life. So we want to see how we can, or how a meditation practitioner can stay away from stress. And at a later stage, I will also claim that as a meditation practitioner, even if there is stress in your mind, you can get rid of it. So there is so much of power in meditation practice. Last week we have discussed sleep and some of its peculiar features. Yes, in certain aspect, it has something to do with meditation also, and in certain aspect, meditation is different from sleep. Today I want to discuss a specific feature, and I am describing, let's say, how does a child's life go through day-to-day life with the instruments of body and mind. So of course we are relying on ourselves as a composite of body, mind and soul, and body and mind are my instruments, where my soul is truly the me, myself. So as a child, if you recall our childhood, we used to uh, play and study, do everything in a very, I will say, natural manner, more or less. So I will say body and mind instruments were used equitably. So look at the red color. So I will say as the day follows, my body picks up body fatigue. So I am just having a notional level of 1. So towards the end of the day, body is fatigued from 0 to 1 level. And so is true with the mind fatigue. Mind also goes through the activity and then it gets tired. And at the end of the day, the fatigue has built up to level 1. I am a child at this point. Now I go to sleep, and sleep is a wonderful natural gift. Sleep dissipates fatigue. So during the daytime, I pick up fatigue, and as I go to sleep, that sleep is dissipated, it just vanishes. So that is shown as green color, and when I am in sleep, it as if it dissipates the red color, and I come back to the 0 level for both body and mind. And that is what is stated here. I am refreshed next morning as a body and mind are reset to the equilibrium level by sleep. So what was added during the day has been washed out during the night by the wonderful process of sleep. Now let's look at our current stage when we are an adult and the demands of the modern life, if I could characterize as our lifestyle could be characterized as underused body and overworked mind. So we have these two instruments of, unlike in childhood where we use both the instruments equitably, now they are not used equitably. Most of you will agree with me probably. We gain much less body fatigue, just some number, I will say zero point 0.4 rather than 1.0. So we, hardly do any physical work. We don't walk long distance. We drive a car. Then we don't climb stairs. We use a elevator or a escalator, and our lifestyle has become highly convenient and mechanized. But when it comes to the mind fatigue, probably we are working more, overworked mind, and there is a lot of things to worry about, and even lack of security. So many things are there that what was seemingly natural is not now. We cannot count upon it. Even family life, even you cannot, when you return from home, it's not that always you will be supported by your family. So they are at work, at home, everywhere. They are lot of demands, and you have to go through all that. So I'm just saying, as a mental fatigue, slightly excessive at 1.2 level rather than 1.0, whereas the body fatigue is much less than 1.0. Now this person, an imaginary adult who has who is performing daily as underused body and overworked mind, let's imagine he goes to sleep. First there is a question, will he easily go to sleep? And if he goes, will it be that quality what was there in the childhood, which could dissipate entire one volume, one level of fatigue? Let us assume that for a while, then yes, when it comes to body fatigue, it was just zero point 0.4, it has been dissipated, and assuming the mind fatigue is also dissipated as it used to happen in childhood, it dissipates 1.0 level, but then there is some residual excessive mental fatigue which has not been dissipated, even if sleep was good quality. This is, I will call as residual mental fatigue. And then I am saying the adult who has probably day after day, that residual mental fatigue is adding on. So let's look at it. Residual mental fatigue adds day by day, and of course, he he somehow wakes up, maybe probably using an alarm clock, and gets going with the next day's work. The system is good. That though the residual mental fatigue is sleeping somewhere, is hidden somewhere, it may not show up its demonstrate its presence, but it is certainly there. In a day, you cannot notice it, but it is happening day after day, month after month. Then I will say this man is prone to a stress problem. And that's what I'm saying. That as if day by day a drop of stress is adding in his mind, and after 10 years, 20 years, he becomes a stressful person. And then so what I'm saying is stress is not something gathered just by a particular event. It is a lifestyle, and that lifestyle I've just schematically shown in terms of interplay of work and sleep is going to add it gradually. And maybe when he's 55, 65, some there is a stimulus, something happens in his life. Say he has been laid off, or his family member has been diagnosed as cancer. Now, these things happen to many people, but not everybody will go and show the result, the consequences of stress. But this particular person is more likely to show up. So, stress here is not the fact that he has gone into stress because he was laid off or because his family member has been diagnosed cancer. It was his own thing. He has himself brought to a situation that such an event has shows up in a it may show up in like what is caused by stress, something like stroke or heart attack or things like that could happen. So we will not say that this heart attack has happened because he was laid off. What we are saying is because of the stress, and the stress was there because he led his life in a particular manner last 15, 20 years. If he was away from stress and then still he was laid off, maybe he would have reacted in a more positive manner. So what we are saying is it's better late than never. So bad meditation during the day can dissipate the residual mental fatigue. If I go back to this diagram, if this person adopts a regime of meditation in his daily practice, then that meditation may dissipate this zero point 0.2 level of mental fatigue, and rest of it is done by the sleep. So sleep and meditation together can dissipate the mental fatigue of the day the same day. So you don't have a current account on mental fatigue. it is picked up, and end of the day it is dissipated. If not by sleep alone, sleep plus meditation work hand in hand together and dissipate the mental fatigue. So daily meditation and sleep work hand in hand to dissipate mental fatigue same day so that there is no stress built up. So this can, if a young man who is away from stress adopts this kind of regime, then he is likely to lead a life away from stress forever. But as I said, we will make a remark slightly later in the course that even if somebody has brought a baggage of stress, still meditation is such a good, particularly what I am calling Patanjali meditation, which I emphasize the empty blank mind. And then I will make some remarks. When your mind is blank, you are disconnected from your mind. Your mind is washed out of many things, unwanted things, including stress. So, that washing and servicing of your mind is a beautiful feature of Patanjali meditation that we'll see later. Yes, I will think I will make this remark later. And let's move on to our daily practice of Patanjali meditation. Going back to the webinar monitor room and setting an alarm. Again, I would have liked 20 minutes, but we have 15 minutes only. So here it is for 20 hours, 20:00. Let's do 3 cycles of pranayam, deep breathing, 4 phases in each cycle, integrated with pranayam mantra. Before that, shake away any stiffness from your major bone joints and just feel physically good. Slightly straight posture, your hands on the knees or the palms are brought together. Let's begin 3 cycles of deep breathing. Deep breathe out. Om Bhu, Om Bhuva, Om Swa. Breathe in. Om Bhu, Om Bhuva, Om Swa, Om Maha, Om Jana, Om Tapa, Om Satyam. Breathe out. Om Bhu, Om Bhuva, Om Swa. Breathe in. Om Bhu, Om Bhuva, Om Swa, Om Maha, Om Jana, Om Tapa, Om Satyam. Breathe out. Om Bhu, Om Bhuva, Om Swa. Breathe in. Om Bhu, Om Bhuva, Om Swa, Om Maha, Om Jana, Om Tapa, Om Satyam. Let's recite the sound, the Pranav Dhwani 5 times together. Om. 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 We can casually open our eyes. That was our ninth session. Thank you for joining us and see you next week.